Wintry mess. Everywhere we had these advisories, I was going through them, and what's interesting is they're basically for everything. A rain-snow mix, some ice, some snow, even though the snow is very, very light here. But anywhere you see the blue shading, it's just an absolute wintry mess. We do have some ice accumulating through the day. Again, it doesn't take a lot. Even just getting a glaze less than 1/10 of an inch can be disruptive and cause problems on the roads. We saw so many issues yesterday. And notice that we do have this surge of warmth coming northbound. So there are some cooler temperatures, but they're right at the surface at heavier, colder air. So you have that warm air coming up and over it, and then that's where you could get that freezing rain to set up. Otherwise, it is just strictly rain and then snow when you get a little bit farther north. Chicago, you're icing right now at 33 degrees. Peoria, Indianapolis, I should say, over to Cleveland and Detroit. It's all rain-free this morning. But don't let it fool you, because you could be going in and out like we are here into Fort Wayne, where we have a little icing, while Indianapolis is rain, while places like Valparaiso are just cloudy. So this morning you have to be very, very aware, very on top of the weather. We've had accumulations of 1/10 of an inch, 3/10 of an inch for us here, Forsyth over into Champaign, and even up into Eau Claire, 1/10 of an inch. And that's enough to make things really, really slow. And as you can see, we have, ice and snow-covered roads in Illinois. Anywhere you see the pink shading on the map for us. Northbound, it is right along the border there with Chicago, where we have some of the worst of the roads. Though anywhere you see the blue means that it's pretty slick out there, whether that's from the rain or the ice or the snow. So there are your temperatures. I mean, it is just such a small margin to go from rain to wintry weather to ice. And we see that also as we go into Indiana. The southern parts of the state are much warmer. But once you get up in this 32, 33, 34 range, it can get really tricky, because that's just one layer of the atmosphere. And depending on what's happening above that, that's going to make a huge difference too. So as we go through the day today, this is just going to be an unsettled pattern. It's all going to be moving into the northeast, but it takes basically the entire day to get there. We'll finally clear out this evening, though. Look at that surge of rain coming in. Kelly, it stays very active across the country. It's just like storm after storm after storm. Snow totals will be light.
It stays active, plus the
threat, and get into some of the details of it, because we have energy coming in. And by the way, all the mess that happened in California yesterday, energy from that is going to swing east and cause more problems for us here, especially as we head into our Wednesday. But there is that threat for excessive rainfall, and then we will get flash flooding from that. So why are we going to see it so likely? Well, the ground's thawing out. Remember, it was very cold in the south, freezing temperatures, ice, snow, the whole 9 yards. High rainfall rates, it could be 1 to 2 inches an hour. That is significant. That could cause excessive runoff and flooding. A lot of cities, I was going through city by city, get anywhere from, let's say, 3 to 6 inches for the entire month of rain. So we could see 1 to 2 months worth of rainfall out of some of this. And there's a lot of warm air coming up too as we head over the next several days. That, of course, could also pop off some of those thunderstorms. 5 to 8 inches into Louisiana, Texas, but a huge swath here of 3 to 5 inches for us. And we need it on these dry grounds. But when it comes so quickly, we just can't absorb it as fast. And one of the reasons is there's a lot of concrete. And of course, that does not absorb the water. And so it just runs off, and that causes a lot of problems. That's when you see the flooding. That's when you see the ponding, and 55% actually runs off from this concrete. I'm surprised it's not really actually 100%. I guess there's different factors there. The flood threat significantly increases, obviously, in those urban areas, and we are going to see that today. Memphis, we see showers because it is just a stormy pattern we're in. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we finally clear out, which is great, just in time for the weekend, right? How about Mississippi? Heavy rain today into tomorrow as that energy comes out of California and swings east and really enhances the rainfall for us. Kelly.
Well, Steph, one of the
not only to structures, but the water that piles up behind it. So flooding can be caused by an ice jam. Ice flows, or that shift in ice, can actually damage structures. And obviously, you can get roads and street flooding. And this is a flash flood alerts until further notice here along the Kankakee River. We have flood warnings and flood watches there for us. So let's talk about all the ingredients here of what causes an ice jam. So you have a river in the winter, everything freezes up. The ingredients that you need here for an ice jam, and here's a look at the Kankakee River. And what's so interesting about these satellites is a lot of times you can see the rivers and then the rivers actually, you can see that water flowing through them because usually they flow, but this river is unfortunately jamming up, and we're getting warmer temperatures. We're getting rainfall on top of all of this, and that warmth continues into February. So we could see this not only on the Kankakee, but on other rivers as well. Look at the forecast here in the Chicagoland area. Temperatures will stay above our average of 31 for the extended period all the way into the beginning of February. We'll be right back. Welcome back into America's Morning Headquarters. We are watching days of downpours build across the South. We've already seen flash flooding in San Antonio and Austin, both cities setting a new daily rainfall record. Record Monday, of course, and that slug of moisture is going to continue not only today but into tomorrow. And we could see 5 to 8 inches of it here over Louisiana, portions of Texas, and as we look into Mississippi as well. We are talking about 1 to 2 months worth of rainfall for us. And this is going to cause a potential for flooding and more records to be set for us. So let's get right into it, because some of the energy that's going to cause this, Kelly, is actually coming from the west, and we stay active through the weekend.
We do, and Steph is starting
today because of all the wintry mess, and we have advisories that stretch from the plains all the way into the northeast. And if you look at all these advisories, they're for all different types of things. Some are for the snow, some are for the ice, some are for the mixed precip. Essentially, you're going to see some sort of wintry weather in that area. Of course, ice is the worst because you just can't function when everything is coated in ice for us here. Even a little glaze can cause a lot of problems. What's happening is you've got colder temperatures from the north, warmer temperatures surging northbound, and so it rains and then freezes on contact where you have that 32 degrees. But notice the atmosphere is just an absolute mess across the board here. You're going to get a little rain, snow. You're going to get a little icing. I mean, Des Moines, you're seeing ice. Chicago, ice. Detroit, it's rain for you. And look at that. Chicago's at 33 with ice, and Detroit is rain at 32. So it's not just what's happening at the surface. It's what's happening above the surface as well to determine what you're going to get. Icing in a Grand Rapids, also into Lansing. That is no good. We've seen anywhere from 1/10 to 3/10 of an inch so far this morning. That might not take out power to a ton of people, but it will make you slip and slide all over the roads. And notice that we have all the pink areas. That's where we have winter conditions that are covering the roads, whether it be snow or ice for us up into Wisconsin. Anywhere you see blue is slick. So majority of the state at least has those slick roads. So here are our temperatures, and these are going to make or break us. And it's also going to depend how thick that 32 or 31 degrees is. That will determine what type of weather you get. So it is a tricky nowcasting situation across the Great Lakes this morning. Notice the 40s into southern portions of Indiana, but we get 32, 33, up into northern Indiana, and that's where you're going to run into some ice, maybe a little rain snow mix as well. As we go through the day, we'll start to see this clear out basically afternoon into evening. It will all be moving into the northeast, but temperatures definitely warm. This will be a trend we see throughout the week and into the weekend. Warming temps, that means more rain here, and the snow, Kelly, will be on the light side, nothing that we can't handle.
Yeah, in fact, Buffalo.
Talk a little bit in more detail about the flood threat that we have and why we are seeing it, because there are several players here, and it's today into tomorrow. Huge rainfall rates. That will be one of the players that we have, but we also have the ground thawing out. So remember, we were just frozen solid. We had winter weather in the south, so we're thawing out. If you have a solid ground, obviously the rain cannot get into it, and of course excessive runoff will be problematic as well. As Jordan mentioned, we've got warming temperatures. So that is why we're going to see all rain and no snow in the south. We could see a month's worth of rain in a matter of a few days, maybe 2 months worth in some spots here where you get 8 inches. That is definitely possible. A big swath of 3 to 5 right where we need it. Look at that. It is right over the drought areas. So this will be extremely beneficial. The problem is you get too much at once and it can't absorb. The other problem is you have concrete, and obviously concrete is not going to absorb like you are with the grass here, and majority of that water is just going to run off of the concrete, while you only get 10% runoff where you have grassy areas. And, you know, unfortunately, we've built up so many cities now that is going to increase the flood threat, specifically in some of those urban areas. But watch it around those rivers and those creeks, too. Memphis, it is a wet one. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. At least it's not snow and ice. But hey, beautiful time for the weekend. Friday, we've got sunshine and 60 degrees. Here in and around Memphis, we could see that 3+ inches of rain and some of those heavier downpours. Mississippi, it is Wednesday when we will see very heavy rain. By the way, energy that causes stuff in California will help cause this rainfall, and it's a Tuesday, Wednesday heavy event for us with 5 to 8 inches here in and around Louisiana. Texas, it's the eastern part of the state. Houston, we are 1 to say 3 inches as we go through the next several days. Kelly.
And it was a crazy day.
There you have your flood warning and flood watch along the Kankakee River for us here. Obviously, flooding is expected, dangerous ice flows, and the roads and streets could be inundated as well. Frozen ground or snow cover, check. We've got that. Frozen creeks and rivers, warm temperatures and heavy rain. You'll see the forecast is going to bring in some rain and some warmer temperatures. This is to show you can actually see the river because usually the snow falls around it. It's a lot warmer in the river. It's flowing. But that's the Kankakee River, the frozen ground all around it with snow still on the ground. And now we're going to toss rain on top of that area. And we are going to see those temperatures warm up. And they will continue to do so here through the start of the next month. And so that means that we could have problems not only along the Kankakee River, but perhaps on other rivers as well. Welcome back into America's Morning Headquarters. We are watching days of downpours build across the south. We've already seen flash flooding in San Antonio and Austin. Both cities set a new daily rainfall record Monday, and that slug of deep moisture is going to continue to crank it in today and moving east. So how much rain do we have to come? Well, here it is for you. Louisiana, Mississippi, on into Texas. We could see very heavy rainfall right over areas that are experiencing extreme drought. So that's a positive. The negative is Kelly having 3 to 5, 5 to 8 is a month's worth of rain in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and especially with thunderstorms today.
It was the hottest year on record. That's according to NOAA's State of Climate report. And globally, more than 800 all-time record highs and record warm lows were set. Overall, the last 10 years marked the hottest years on record. And notice that 2023 really shoots up above the rest. Even ocean temperatures hit record highs last year. And although we're dealing with extreme cold and snow this month, 2024 could still end up warmer than last year. I took a deep dive to explain the connections between warming oceans and the weather patterns on land. And meteorologist Jordan Steele and I will take a deeper look at the State of the Climate report when Pata returns at noon right here on the Weather Channel. Let's talk more about some of these numbers that we have seen over the past year and the record warmest year, 2.12 degrees Fahrenheit. That is a huge margin relative to what we've seen in years past. And then, of course, we had the top 10 warmest years all occurring since 2014. And notice the record ocean temperatures from April to December. I mean, the map just looks completely red for the most part here. And if we look at the National Climate Report where we had the most warmth, that was down into Texas, Louisiana, on into portions of Mississippi. And also, as we look into New England a little bit, we were actually seeing record warmth. The rest of us were much above average or above average. The only exception here is Nevada, Kelly, where we were not in that extreme warmth category.
But the rest of the country above average. Wow.
More about the rain in Southern California because we have some serious flooding going on. San Diego streets submerged, neighborhoods, businesses. There were evacuations, water rescues, and the city declared a state of emergency.
Yeah, so we got Jonathan Vigliotti with our partners over at CBS News in San Diego right now joining us live. Jonathan, thanks so much for being with us at this early hour. We know we've been talking stats. Wettest January day on record in San Diego. Can you at least set the scene for us this morning? What's been going on? At least what have you seen the last 24 hours?
Yeah, good morning to you, Jordan. So at the
unbelievable.
Right.
You know, Jonathan, what do the streets look like? Are people able to get around? I noticed just looking at your feet, it looks like the mud is pretty thick. I would guess hard to drive in that.
Yeah, I mean, this is when we
And we get a break right now. What would you say are the biggest issues in the city right now?
It is the cleanup. And
They are. Jonathan Vigliotti with our partners, our CBS, one of the best of the best. Thank you for bringing us that story because you really let us know, for those of us who aren't out there, what it is like. You're from this area, Jordan.
Flooding like this,
Have you ever
crazy.
seen anything like this?
Well, I remember
up?
when I was young, it was like the El Nino of either 97, 98, 96,
Had
97, one of
impacts
those.
like this.
We had big flooding, but I don't ever remember seeing scenes like that where cars were on top of each other. You had residents leaving their home, video of people trying to just trench through all this water. So thankfully they do get a break, but the west stays active.
It does, very active. We'll see more rain, more snow coming in. This is, by the way, through Sunday, very heavy rainfall. And then all this crosses, essentially, we're in a very busy pattern. Things come across the west and get all the way to the northeast.
It's been very beneficial snow-wise for the Sierra, obviously up into the Cascades. Then another one coming in this weekend. Gates stay open.
Tuesday, Ann Arbor public schools are closed. Detroit public schools are closed. Anywhere from the plains into the northeast, we have winter weather advisories. This is for ice. It's for rain-snow mix. There's a lot of different types of weather happening right now in the atmosphere, and that's because the atmosphere is like a hamburger. And right now, at the surface, you've got this cold 32 degrees coming in, but from the south, we've got warmer air coming up and over it. So it rains into that cold air and freezes on contact. That's where you're going to get some of this icing. But notice it depends on how thick it is, how thin it is, what the layers above that, how thick or thin they are. Obviously, where you have snow up into the thumb of Michigan. By the way, if you ever meet someone from Michigan, just go like this, and they'll point to where they're from on your hand. But we have snow, so obviously it's cold throughout the layer. But what's really important is where we have the icing. From Milwaukee, Chicago reporting some ice, Detroit also reporting some ice, because even just a glaze can cause a lot of problems for us here. Our temperature is sitting right around freezing, so it is super tricky right now. Lansing seeing some icing. 1/10 of an inch to 3/10 of an inch has already accumulated, and the roads are pretty messy here into Illinois. The only place that is good is where it's green, and that's basically in the southern part of the state. Yeah, a little bit into northern Illinois, but overall, majority of the roads are either slick or covered with winter weather, and the same as we look at Wisconsin, especially closer to that border of Illinois. The roads are super slow going. Notice our temperatures here, and this is deceiving because you're like, oh, it's below, it's 32 or colder. It instantaneously should be snow. Not how the atmosphere works. You have to look at each of those layers to determine the type of precip that you are going to get. Obviously, where it's warmer, we have rain, but where it's 31, 32, 33, that's where things can get a little trickier with colder at the surface and then warm air aloft. Because if it's a very, thick layer of warm air and tiny of cold, then you might get rain. But if you have, a little bit of that cold air at the surface that's thick enough, then that rain could freeze on contact. It's going to be an all-day event, at least into the afternoon hours. This pushes into the northeast. We will see clearing as we head around dinner time from west to east, but notice this surge of moisture coming up from the south. Rain for our Wednesday. Snow totals, they'll be on the light side, but we will still get it for us here. Kelly, right around the lakes, especially as we head into the afternoon, things are going to be warming up. It'll change over to rain, so it will improve.
Just when we're building up the ice cover.
And more details about that flood threat that Jordan was just mentioning there, because we have it in the south as we head over the next couple of days. And it's a pretty high likelihood that we are going to see some flooding here for several reasons. Here are a few of the main concerns. You have the ground thawing out. Remember how cold it was the first few weeks of the year in the south, and the snow and the ice and the freeze, all of it. Also, very high rainfall rates. We can see 1 to 2 inches an hour of rainfall. That is huge. And then you have what Jordan was mentioning, all of the melting. You have to watch out for some runoff and some flooding too. And also around those creeks and rivers, you have to be very careful. The warmth will continue. Not only does it stick around through the weekend, it is going to spread out. So a lot of us are going to feel those temperatures above average. That's also going to kick off thunderstorms, giving us a lot of convection. So you have to be careful for that. 3 to 5, even 5 to 8 inches of rain. So this is 1 to maybe 2 months worth of rainfall in a very short period of time. The one positive, it is literally smack dab right over where we do have drought and where we have the worst of the drought. So that's good, but the problem is if we get too much too fast, then it's just all going to run off. The grass areas, obviously, those can absorb a lot more water. We really only get about 10% of runoff when you're talking about the grassy areas, much higher when you're in the cities and you have so much concrete around. Then a lot more rain is just going to go to waste, essentially. And that flood threat also increases because you have all this water flowing. Memphis, we've got the rain through Thursday, and then, hey, at least for the start of the weekend, it's out of here, which is nice. That is Memphis. Memphis, we will see anywhere from, excuse me, add that to the tally. We're seeing how many on-air sneezes I actually ever do on average. Mississippi, we're one of the spots that's going to see a lot of rain, especially on Wednesday, but overall we could see 3 to 5 inches. And into Louisiana, that's where we will see some of the heaviest accumulations. Kelly.
That.